Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Brand Blueprint, where we talk to founders who are building real companies in real time. Not just the polished highlight reel, but the actual work behind the brand. Now, today I am excited to bring on a really special founder that I have actually worked with since last fall. We're talking about somebody who has the confidence in the oral care segment of the product development space and what it looks like when a founder takes a lived experience and turns it into a business with real customer pool. Now, my guest today is Kanicka Joseph. She is the founder of
Hi.
K&K Smiles, a natural oral care brand built around a simple but powerful idea. Confidence should not be complicated. Now, Kanicka brings more than 15 years of dental experience to this work. And what I love about the story is that K&K Smiles did not start as some abstract market opportunity that she thought of after watching an episode of Shark Tank. It started with a mother and a daughter, a real sensitivity to how people feel about their smiles, and a desire to create products and experiences that make oral care feel safer, simpler, and more confidence building. Now, K&K
Absolutely.
Smiles offers products like charcoal glow toothpaste, Smile Rinse, Smile Mist, and the Smile Box. And the brand is also building around whitening experiences, pop-ups, retail, and a staff light booth concept that could make the experience more accessible in small spaces. So look,
Okay.
this conversation is going to be a good conversation for anybody building a consumer product brand, anybody trying to combine service and retail, and anyone trying to scale something that started with a deeply personal why. And without further ado, Kanicka, welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Thanks for having me.
We have known each other for a little bit now after working with each other in the We Build Fall Accelerator. And that was a
Yeah.
really cool program that I talk a lot about on this show. So I'm not going to derail our interview right now. We'll talk a little bit about
Mhm.
that later. But first things first, we want to get into our rapid fire warm up segment where we get a chance
Okay.
to know a little bit more about you as a person. So are you ready to jump into
Okay.
that?
I am ready.
All right, great. Let's get ready to jump in then. First question I ask every guest on the show, and wouldn't be right if I didn't ask you, coffee or tea?
I would have to say tea. I have never actually been a coffee fan. I actually never really tried coffee, to be honest. So yeah, tea would
Really?
be my thing. Tea would be my thing. Yes, I'm all for the
Okay,
tea,
very
and
cool.
it's not your regular tea. It has to be like strawberry tea or something like that. It's just it has to have some flavor. Yeah.
Now, switching gears and talking a little bit about oral care, what is the one word you would use to describe your own smile today?
My own smile growing up, it would be Kool-Aid smile or gummy smile because when I smile, you just see all gums, and so I still go by that. They were like, "Where's your smile?" It's still gummy. I still have a
Yep.
signature smile, pretty much, so
You feel
yeah,
like
I'll
you
go
still
with
have the signature gummy
Kool-Aid.
smile. Okay,
I
I'm
still have the
not seeing it
Kool-Aid
from
smile.
here. You feel like you have the classic, beautiful white smile, but we will take
Yeah,
your word for the gospel. Now, following that
yes.
up, what is one oral care myth that you really wish would just go away or disappear?
Ooh, oral care myth. Oh my god, there are so many. One that I wish I hear this all the time, it's easier just to get my teeth pulled and wear
Oh my
dentures.
God. Yep.
And I want people to know it is nothing like your real teeth. There's nothing like whether you getting veneers or there's nothing like your real teeth. That is a myth. They might look good, but it's a life-changing experience. So I don't recommend it. You hang on to your regular teeth. I don't care if you just have one. Hang on to them as long as you can because you need them.
Yep. Now, as a mom, an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, a mother, and a wife, what is the one product that you always keep in your purse, your car, or your travel bag?
It would be our smell mist because it's the easiest one. It's convenient. And so if we're out somewhere and I bit into a burger that has onions in it or something like that, I'm quick to just spray and go on about my way. And so yeah, and it's a household favorite, literally.
Now, switching to the digital world, what's the one app or tool or a platform that you cannot run the business without right
Google Sheets
Yep.
and Google
Yep.
Slides and
So
Google. I'm a Google
the
freak.
Google
Yeah,
suite of
so
products. Yep.
everything, yep, everything is linked to my Google.
Now, one of the things that are going to touch on in the interview, but I want to ask because a lot of founders have kids. You are a parent of two
Hmm.
kids now. Most
Yes.
recently, had a baby earlier this year, a little girl, and you also have an older daughter who coincidentally was involved in the origin story of the brand.
Mm,
So we're going
yeah.
to talk a little bit about that in the interview. But what I'm curious about is, what is the one thing that you've learned from your oldest daughter as a co-founder and creative partner of the brand? Because people always say, "Oh, kids say the darndest things." You can learn a lot
Hmm.
from kids. Your daughter actually was very involved in the origination of this business. So, what's one
Hmm.
thing that you can offer our audience that you learned from her?
Literally just listening to her. Like the toothpaste was her idea. And at first I was like, girl, I don't even
Yep.
cook. I don't even know the first thing of doing it. Like, we're not doing it. I was like totally against it. But her just like, mama, let's just try it. Just really listen to your kids. Like, just listen to your kids. That would be my advice. Listen to your kids, literally, because she has now some things I'm like, Kalani, now I don't know. I just don't know. I just got to shake my head. But I would most definitely listen to your kids. I feel like a lot of founders, we get these businesses and there are these ideas, and it's like me, 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 me. But my daughter was the goat in the whole process of us developing
Yeah.
it. Like, I had no idea. Like, I came from teeth, yes, but
Yep.
as far as like the ingredients, everything, that was all her.
I think a lot of parents can learn from your kids, whether it's the product features or how to
Yep.
market or reach the right audience, especially if that audience
Yep.
is close to their age. They will
Yep.
have some insight that will be invaluable.
Keeps me young. She's like, "No, mama, they doing this on TikTok. We need to do this. They doing this. We need to do that." And so it keeps me grounded. So I'm grateful.
Now, I want to go with one more question for you. I know you are a multifaceted person who spends a lot of time, not just in the lab, so to speak, as a founder, but you also read a lot, listen to a lot of music, into a lot of cultural things. Tell me or give our audience one song, one quote, or one scripture, one piece of inspiration that kind of gets you back on track as a founder when you feel like you kind of had one of those grind out days or grind out weeks.
Actually, it would have to be Matthew 5:14. It's a scripture, and that's really my vision, is just being a light. And so if I have a day, I'm like, how are you out here being angry? And you supposed to be being a light to these people. And so that's what I live by. I live by the
I
vision. My
love that.
vision actually.
That concept is so everlasting. I was a
Mhm.
graduate of Morehouse College, and we have a former president by the name of Benjamin Mays, and he wrote a book called Candle in the Dark. And it's the
Mm,
same concept as that
mm,
scripture. It is being a
mm,
candle in the dark and leading those of us who may not have as much access or vision, leading the
mm,
way, right? And helping them
leading
find the
the
way.
way.
So, yeah. Now, last question for you before we get on to your origin story. If you
Mhm.
were not a founder of K&K Smiles and firmly embedded in the dental space, what would you be doing?
I would actually still be a dental assistant. That's still my heart. I'll probably still be working in oral surgery is what I probably would still be doing.
So
I
still
would
in the
still be
oral
doing
space,
oral surgery.
but doing
Yep.
something on the surgical or the clinical side.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so look, let's get ready to get into your business story now that we've had a chance
Okay.
to learn a little bit more about you personally. Are you ready to go?
Okay. I am.
All right, great. Now, the audience knows a little bit more about you, but I kind of teased, and you even mentioned early in the conversation about having a gummy smile and learning to
Mhm.
hide it. Then, in your first year
Yep.
of dentistry, a hygienist told you that your smile was beautiful and unique, which I agree. First, I want you to, for people maybe outside the culture, break down what a
Mhm.
gummy smile means, because some people are going to say, well, I don't know what she means or whatever, right? And it's a cultural thing, I think, right? Talk about
Yeah.
that transition. And I think this is important because I grew up, and I think a lot of kids, a lot of Black kids, I would specifically say, grow up in
Mhm.
a world where you may take a physical attribute of yours that is not necessarily anything that anybody outside of your small little world noticed.
Mhm.
And for me, it was
Mhm.
being dark skinned. Like it was
Uh-huh.
always hearing the dark skin thing. And I always thought, oh man, if I could be a light skinned person, I would have so many more positive
Right. Right.
outcomes, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
Right.
And I,
Yeah.
I love how in your situation, you took something that clearly was initially a negative translation of who you were, what your self worth was about, and able to transition it later. So talk a little bit about that.
So I had been in dentistry for about 2 years at the time, and I was working at this hygienist, and she would be like, "Why is you always talk to people, but you never show like your whole smile?" I had developed a little fake smile, is what they would say. But first, we can start with a gummy smile. For those that know, it's like so when you smile, you see nothing but gums, like everything.
Mhm.
It started there, and she was like, she had pulled me to the side, and she was like, "Why do you have this fake smile? Like I just love it when you smile." And I'm like, "Do you really? Because all you see is gums." She was like, "Yeah." She was like, "You have a unique smile." And she said, "When you smile, you literally can light up a room." And so what she would have me do is when patients would come in, I would have to read off to them oral healthcare tips and stuff like that because I was assisting with hygiene. And so my next patient came along and I was just smiling and he didn't say anything rude or anything. And we were just having a good old time. And so that moment I was like, she just built my confidence. Like I feel good about myself. And so in all of my pictures, I would just start smiling. There was no more fake smile, no little he. It was just always just like a gummy smile. So that's actually where the confidence part came in. Just me knowing that your smile is literally everything. And I feel like even if you want to go deeper, everything starts in the mouth. Do you think about it? I mean, what you say even matters. Like
Mhm.
you can't just be out here
Mhm.
just blurting out things.
Mhm.
But if your smile looks good, you feel good. So that's actually
Mhm.
where that confidence part came from.
I was just going to ask you as a follow-up question, how do you think that it shaped your experience in terms of how you look at confidence and self-consciousness now that you
Mhm.
have moved forward in creating this brand? But I want to add something to that and bring in the part where your daughter helped in the creation of this, because here you are with something you dealt with in your own childhood.
Yeah.
And then you go
Mhm.
into the oral care business now,
Mhm.
but you're there from a career standpoint, right?
Yeah.
So talk about where it pivoted. Talk about
Yeah.
how you made that transition from being a hygienist and being in the dental space to then
Mhm.
having a conversation with your daughter and that turning into, oh,
Mhm.
maybe we can make a product.
And so actually before we even thought about being a
All right.
product, as she got older, she looks exactly like my twin. And so I would always encourage her, "You are pretty, you are beautiful. I don't care what they say about your smile, girl, you got it going on." But not knowing in the back of my head, that girl is what you call conceited. She didn't have no problem with that, but I was just making sure. But it started in 2020. I was working in oral surgery. It was actually the end of COVID when I got laid off. And I ain't gonna lie, I was pissed off at these dental offices because I'm like, why can't I find a job? Why did I get laid off? And going through that whole spiral. I
Mhm.
ended up getting on Google, seeing what I could do without a dentist. I was like, I'm gonna do my own thing because y'all don't want to hire me and I need some money. And so teeth whitening popped up to
Yep.
sum it up. Started doing a teeth whitening thing just for a little bit. And in my mind, I'm like, this is just a hustle. Like, it's not enough money. I'm used to making money and I'm used to consistency. And I was like, this is just a hustle. Like, I'm not doing this forever. Like, literally, this is what I do in a dental office. But it makes money. So we ended up getting a
Yep.
shop or whatever. I was doing it on the weekends, still trying to find a job. And one day my daughter had to come up to the shop with me. She was 7 at the time. She was like, Mama, I want to help you do something. I'm like, well, the name is K&K Smiles. You're helping enough. I was kind of like shooting her off. She was like, we should make toothpaste. And I'm like, girl, I don't even cook. What are you talking? How am I gonna make toothpaste? I said, like, I'm not a scientist. So she died down on it for a little bit. And 2 days later, she's like, Mama, let's just try to make the toothpaste. And I was like, Kalani, I have no idea how to make it. And so I was like, let me just get on the internet and do some research. So I'm researching stuff, and then my dental brain kicked in, and I'm like, wait, like we all in this natural era, all this other stuff. They used to use coconut oil back in the day. And I was like, people would probably like this. And so we went to Winco grocery store down here. It had to be like
Mhm.
1 o'clock in the morning because there was 24 hours back then. Went up there, grabbed all this stuff, and I tell you what, that stuff was nasty. We was trial and error. And so a couple of weeks go by, we
Uh-huh.
finally got it down. We got to the concept where we're just gonna put them in a jars. And I'm like, okay, let's just see if this is gonna work. And so we go to our first pop-up shop and sold out. People were just like, wait, toothpaste? Like, this is crazy. And so at that point, I was like, this is bigger than toothpaste. Like, I've been trying to get y'all to come get y'all teeth whitened for a good couple of months, but we come along with this toothpaste. And so we started doing the toothpaste thing, and the rest is history. And here we are. And so she really turned my side hustles into a legit business. And it went from just whitening services to toothpaste or oral care line. And so we would have different flavors, and she just enjoyed that. And I think honestly, she just enjoyed saying that she was a CEO of a business and this was
Yeah.
her idea. She loved to tell people that, but baby girl still don't do no work. I'm actually hiring, by the way. I need another co-founder.
I love that. And that definitely is another reason for all this, our listeners and viewers who are watching this to make sure you click in our bio or in the notes for this video to get in touch with Kanicka directly if you are interested in becoming a co-founder at
Yeah.
K&K Smiles. So let's stay with that for a little bit now. As you follow this journey, you've now transitioned and pivoted into a full-fledged brand, right? You know what you want to do.
Yes.
And you and your daughter have formed a couple of initial products, and you've got a hero
Hmm.
product. Talk to
Yep.
me now about, let's talk a little bit about the brand. If you had to describe K&K Smiles to an average consumer that was potentially looking for a new toothpaste to try, how would you
Hmm.
describe your brand?
I would describe it as fun. First of all, like it's just fun. It's an instant confidence booster, all natural ingredients, so you don't have to worry about the abrasives or anything. Like
Mm,
we are in the business of removing stains, not creating more. And then also, what's unique about our labeling and our bottling right now is there's a scan code and it says "Scan for encouragement." And when you scan that code, there's a random Bible verse. And so it's an instant confident booster. And I feel like our brand is very unique. It's not just your regular toothpaste. You're getting more than toothpaste when you squirt it out.
you said that a couple of times before about being more than toothpaste. You talk a little bit
Mhm.
even in your brand materials about this confidence ritual, brush, rinse, mist,
Mhm.
and then for some customers, the whitening experience.
Mhm.
So talk about why ritual is so important and routine is so important for your brand and your business.
I just tell people like my customers or my clients who come in and get their teeth whitened. I'm like, okay, so just imagine if you're going to get your hair done, what do you do to keep your hair good until you go to your next appointment? And so ours, you get your teeth whitening, you use a toothpaste at home for maintenance, you rinse with our mouth rinse, and then when you out and about, you spray. And so it's confidence all day long, all day until
Yeah.
you get to come back and see me.
Yeah. Now, a big piece of your positioning is serving people, to your
Yep.
point, who also want the whitening services. So when you say come
Hmm.
back and see me, they may be coming into you for whitening services as well as your additional products, which I want
Yep.
our audience to
Hmm.
understand as well. So talk a little bit about how those work in conjunction with each other, your services and your products.
Okay, so my services, you come in, you get relaxed, we gonna laugh, we gonna talk, and I'm gonna get you right. But you'll come in, they get settled. I call them getting comfy. They place the cheek retractor in, we apply the gel, apply the light, and then after 30 minutes, you good and bright. And so there is no sensitivity because there's no product that I use that can harm your teeth. So it's meant for it to be instant confidence, instant whitening in 30 minutes, and then it lasts as long as you want it to last. So
Yeah.
some people, I never tell anybody, I know you smoke, I know you do this or whatever, but if you maintain it with my toothpaste, you should be fine. So you can go drink your wine and your red sodas or your tea, and you can
Yeah.
still maintain your smile because you're coming to me and you're using products. So you can keep your daily regimen.
As a guy who also worked for a company in Procter and Gamble, owners of Crest
Mm,
toothpaste, and so I've been
they
adjacent
own
to the
everything.
category and followed it. Right, and one of the things that I learned over time is that with products that you use in a personal standpoint, you have to really develop a level of trust with your
Hmm.
consumer, and your customer has to trust the products, ingredients, and what you're telling or what you're asking them to do
Hmm.
when they actually ingest it or put it in their mouth in this particular case with your products. Talk about how do you think safety, customer education, pre-screening, and all of those things make sure that people understand when they should talk to a dentist or a professional before trying a whitening service. Because I know that is, you kind of mentioned that,
That's
like
one of
people
the
want
things.
to, they want to know, right? So how do you work through that?
Used to get backlash because I was sending people away when I first started. I'm like, wait a minute, like I come from dinner, you got bigger problems than whitening your teeth. But what I would do is when they come in, if I notice anything like off, whether you could tell when somebody just got their tooth pulled, you could tell when somebody has gum disease, you could tell when somebody hadn't been to the
Yeah,
dentist in a very, very long time.
yeah,
I still have a heart and I'm like, I don't want your money. I actually really want you to get help. A
get
lot of
better
those
oral.
still come back and see me. And so I would say, hey, go and see a dentist first and then come and talk to me whenever you get your treatment done or whatever the case is. And so That's what I recommend. I always tell people we safety first. And that's actually how I built trust with people, by being honest.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
whitening your teeth today, but
Yeah.
you can still use my toothpaste. You can still use my
Yeah.
products, but you have to go and see a dentist, because if I whiten your teeth, it's about to fall out in about 3 days. Then to go handle your business and then come back and see me, and I got you. And a lot of them, they do. They love honesty. I don't want your money. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. Honestly,
And like
people
you
don't
said, that
understand.
produces a level of trust between you and your customers.
Trust.
And I'm
Yep.
sure
Mm-hmm.
then it allows them to be honest with you. And I'm curious, what are your
Yep.
customers saying when they come back and they get a service for a second time? What are they telling you that changed for them, or that they experience why they are back again asking for the service a second or third or fourth time? What are they telling
I get a lot of, you should do this in the dental office. And I'm like, they do. You just can't
you?
afford
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But they honestly say that they are grateful, for one, because I'm not charging an arm and a leg just to get, and they trust me
So
because they love the value. And then also, I'm just an easygoing person. I'm very honest and like the experience of it.
I know in your service model, you're also thinking about, and I want to transition a little bit to some of the more
Mhm.
business aspects of the brand, but you have
Mhm.
a couple of unique distribution models that you're also going to be testing out as you continue to grow the brand. Talk to our audience a little bit about your go to market strategy between pop ups, products, your services, and this upcoming new booth concept, and how that business model is going to work for your brand.
Mm-hmm. And so we started off doing pop-ups, and I hated pop-ups. I'm like, I don't want to be here all day selling everything. Me and my daughter would show up with these. We would be in the car with a steak attitude, but the minute we got out the door, hey y'all, it's K&K. But I just could not stand pop-ups. And it can
Yeah.
probably happen anywhere. But you go and there's a plethora of people and you only sold one thing, and I'm mad. I've been up making this toothpaste all night. Like, what do you mean I didn't sell out? And so we would have that happen a little bit, but then once I changed the way I showed up. That's what happened. And so I
I
wasn't
love
just
that.
out there to sell. I was out there making connections with people and just talking to people. And they like, wait.
I'm going to interrupt you. Give some founders some quick
Mhm.
tips on that, because that's really dope advice and that's a great insight. Because a lot of founders, right, jump out there. One of the easiest things to do is to just pop up, right? Because
Yep.
it doesn't require anybody's permission per se. You don't have to go sell
Yep.
distribution in the store. You don't have to pay
Mm-hmm.
super huge fees to be in the mall. You can just go to a
Mm-hmm.
specific event and little to no fees, you can
Yep.
retail your product for that day. But
Yep.
to your point, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to
Yep.
do it.
It's
Talk
a
a little
better
bit
way to
about
do it. Yeah.
some of the things that y'all
Yeah.
were doing before, and then what you figured out to your point on how to show up the
Yeah.
right
Before we would just get there, we set up, we had our
way.
logo on our tablecloth, we had the
Uh-huh.
signs and everything, and we would literally
Uh-huh.
just sit there and be just. And my daughter, again, she's like, Mom, I'm gonna just go start talking to people. And I'm like, well, you go ahead and just start talking to people. So she would go out, just being her little self, walking around these pop-up shops. She would just hand out business cards like, hey, come see us
Mm-hmm.
over here. And so after so long, people would start coming up to the table and they're like, hey, I heard your daughter. She talked to us. I love her. What do you got? She said she make toothpaste. And so we interested. And so it started there. People
Yeah.
love when you look organized. You got to be ready.
Yeah.
You really have to
Yeah.
be ready.
Yeah.
Stay ready.
I love you
Mhm.
being transparent right there
Yeah.
and admitting that, and then telling this audience how important it is to actually show up
To show
from a
up.
visual
Yep.
standpoint and look the part, right? And
Yep.
one of
Look
the
the
things I've
part and
always
represent
loved about
yourself.
working with you is from the day I first met you, I didn't know what your brand was, but I knew it must have been in the clinical space because you were wearing your smile,
Your
right? And
scrubs.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, she's wearing her scrub. She must be doing
Mhm.
something official because you don't really
Yeah.
wear scrubs unless you official like a referee whistle, right? So
Yep.
I see you the first time, I immediately think that. And I'm sure that matters, right? To your point.
It does.
So talk a little bit
Mhm.
about how you evolved that into some of your more frequent choices in terms of the places that you
Mhm.
now go on a pretty frequent basis
Yeah.
and why. Why do you go to those places versus others?
Because I was one of those founders. I'm like, everybody got teeth. So everybody must be my audience. That is not the case. Everybody
Yep.
is not your audience. And
Yep.
so they're like, who is your audience? They were asking who your audience was. And I'm like, everybody, you got teeth, right? And they're like, no. And that's so true.
Correct.
Some people just don't, they're not your audience. So I show
Yep.
up to places where I know my people are going to be at. And so what I mean by my people, my healthcare folks, my natural junkies, the people that I know that are going to actually be interested in my product. And how I found that out is literally just by being in the room and popping out and just experiencing. Now we go to pop-up shops and we have a smile mirror. We have things that attract people to the table. Some days I don't even have anything to sell. I just want to talk to you because I just like talk, or I just love the people. And so I'm just like, hey, what do you do? Or how can I help you? We're doing market research and then we're out just serving because that's what we
Yep.
just do. We just really just out
Yep.
serving, and it just really comes to you, really, to be honest.
Yep.
If you out
Yep.
just
I love
serving,
that.
not always.
And I love what you said, which is so insightful, because a lot of founders, I don't think, really appreciate this, because in the beginning, you want to get every single dollar
You
available
do.
to the brand. And so no matter what the brand is, you tell people, when people ask you, so who's it for? You usually say, oh, it's for everybody. If it's a hair care product, it's for all hair types, right? If it's a skincare product, it's all skin types, right? If it's a makeup, we cover all shades. And now I think we live in an era where consumers are responding to personalization. This is one of my soapbox moments. A lot of the founders who work with me know that this is one of my theories and philosophies, and that is personalized brands that go after niches and go after audiences that are definable and that can be identified and then targeted are much more effective than brands that just try to throw a net out there and catch anybody and everybody swimming by. It doesn't make for an effective strategy. And what I want founders to know watching this program is it doesn't mean that your brand isn't necessarily usable by pretty much everybody. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying, though, is there's no sustainability in a strategy of trying to attract and target everybody. You got to focus on a smaller audience so you can get really focused around your marketing spending and your message, and ultimately your ability to deliver your product and services.
Funny story about that, me thinking that everybody was my audience. I had showed up to a pop-up shop. It was a whole bunch of older people, and I had no idea why we were doing a thing down there with old people. Half these people had dentures. So they walking past my table, and he like, I can't use your product, I got dentures. And I'm like, you know what, you really can't.
That is so perfect of a point, right? Because it also translates into how you now understand how to better target your customers, even online. It translates into both environments. Now, I saw also on your materials and in conversations we've had in the past, you specifically have success in environments like First Fridays and Mother Road Market. Talk about why some of those places have been successful for you early
on. Honestly, First Friday, just by me being in the room. And so, interesting story with Build in Tulsa. The program I did with them first is called Build Up 4.0. And I had at that time still, it's 2022, like I'm still just now, kind of refining my business, trying to get my feet out there. And they're like, do this program. So I did it. It was 4 weeks. And we did a pitch competition. I ended up taking first place. So I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, you start doing our First Fridays. And I'm like, oh, okay, we can start doing the First Fridays. So before we start doing the First Fridays, one of the ladies up here, Desiree, she invited me to do a beauty summit. And so I'm thinking us like a regular pop-up shop or whatever. No, this lady put me in a room full of boss females. And when she signed me up, it was a 3-day process. And I'm like, Desiree, we got toothpaste out of the kitchen. Do you realize that you sent me this email? She's like, yeah, just go. You'll be fine. Go. And this is another thing I want to tell founders. Go when you're uncomfortable too, because you just never know who's sending you or who's in the room or whatever the case is. Because here I am feeling like this small in this room full of people. These women like Kim Roxy, she in the stores and stuff. And I'm like, I ain't got no business here with these people. But it was the conversations that God wanted me to hear, because speed up to the First Fridays, people were like, I seen you at that beauty summit, you had these things. And then it led from, oh, well, I seen you at that beauty summit and we talked, let me help you with this. And so it was the connections that I made in the room. And that's how I know God sent me in the room, just to be a net so I can catch everything when it was my time. And so that was that. But boy, I was mad at Desiree. I said, don't send me around these people because I'm very uncomfortable. They know what they talking about. They got manufacturing and everything. And I'm looking like, girl, I just made this toothpaste in my kitchen last night. Well, it looks good, but I've been up for 4 hours. But I learned so much. Still to this day, I have connections with. They've helped me elevate my brand. And so from that, it started with the First Fridays, just being in the room. Just being in the room.
Look,
it just started from there.
I mean, and it's a great example. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want you to touch on your experience in various accelerators and programs. And one of the programs that we met in and that you just mentioned in terms of a couple of key people that helped you along the way, which is the WE Build in Tulsa program. Talk a little bit about Build in Tulsa and specifically how a founder should think about entering into these
Yeah.
accelerators, right? Because a lot of founders out there, and I talk to people all the time, hey, don't apply for every program because not every program is a fit for every founder. Not
Yeah.
every program is going to necessarily be the best for you, even if they're giving you
Yeah.
funding. So, talk a
Yep.
little bit about BIT and some of the programs that you've had experience with and why they've been so beneficial for you.
One thing I love about Build and Tulsa, they are very transparent. They really genuinely care. So they tell me all the time, don't apply to everything. You don't need that. You're not there yet. And I was one of those founders. I jumped up first. I'm like, I done did this. I done made the news. Like, y'all go write me a check. Like, I need this. But what I really love about them is the transparency and how they really, really love their founders. And they get personal with you too. They get personal with you. And so I love that. But the program that we just did, we built, it was 10 of us, the tech side, CPG side, and of course I was CPG. This was very, very beneficial for me because I learned so much going into that program. I didn't even know what a KPI was. And I'm like, what is that? And so we had, I say this, we had a lot of programming, but again, iron sharper iron. So the people that were
Yeah,
in the room, we learned more from each other than we
yeah.
did of the actual program. And they were very strategic about how they picked and placed people too. Cause I'm like, how y'all got me sitting next to Kristen? How do y'all even know that
Mhm.
I needed something for her or from Brianna or from Cora or from all the other founders in there? And if I had advice for a founder about these accelerators, read the fine print. Capital is
No,
not
good.
everything, and you really don't even need capital. First of all, don't give me no more money because me and Guy got this thing and my hands ain't disciplined. It ain't going to the business. So I don't need no capital. I need to be disciplined in these certain areas before you write me. Because some people can't handle that amount of money.
Yeah,
We can be honest, it's not going to the business, it's not going to what I told you it was gonna go to. And so let me get that in check first. But that's where Build and Talk to step in. They're really transparent in knowing your business and figuring out what you need. So it's not always that you need capital. Maybe I need to talk to Dana. Maybe I need to talk to
yeah.
somebody else. Maybe I need
Introduction to
to,
a retailer. Maybe you need a
yep, or something like,
manufacturing contact, right?
yep,
Maybe you
manufacturing
need a
contract.
lawyer to
Yep.
look over a patent. So
Yep.
I agree
You
with
don't
you. There's
always just
so
need
many other
capital. Yeah.
resources. Great point. And shout out to Bit and
Mhm.
all of the people over there, Ashley, Dez, and the rest of the
Mhm.
crew who've been great. Now, I want you to talk a little bit more as we think about brands like yours that require at some point a contract manufacturing relationship, and then eventually you
Mhm.
will likely manufacture your own product. But you start many cases like you did in your own kitchen. So I want you to talk about, because one of the things that founders make early mistakes on is not understanding their costs. And I don't want you to
Yep.
have to share details specifically about the
Mhm.
cost or cost of goods, but I do want you to talk about the process of first, because you said it earlier, just
Yeah.
understanding and learning those
Mhm.
terms, then how you've applied that
Applied it.
to your business to the point where you're comfortable with your margins and you know what it's going to take to
Mhm.
scale your business.
So when I first started out, up until maybe like a year and a half ago, to be honest, when we first started making a toothpaste, we didn't do none of the formulations to see how much this stuff. We were just buying it, and we were selling it for $2. So we really wasn't
Oh
making a
my God.
at all. And
Yeah.
so going through these programs and understanding your cost of goods, your COGs, it hit different. I'm like, man, I want my money back. So another piece of advice: listen, be teachable. Be teachable because if I can honestly be transparent, they told me about this a while ago and they're like, hey,
Mhm.
you know how much you spending? And I'm like, I got this. I'm making some money. I'm sold out. I can do this. But in our reality, when you look down into it, you ain't even break even.
Yep.
You ain't
Yep.
even break
And
even.
it's such a great point, Kanika, because in
Mhm,
certain cases, if you don't catch it early enough, the founder
mhm.
could very well spend the only pot of money they had for the
Yep.
business. And now
Yep.
you've learned this really tough lesson, and it's
Yep.
now at the expense of you not being able to do it again.
Yep.
So if you don't catch it
Mhm.
early, and I would implore founders listening to this, if you
Mhm.
feel like you might be underpriced on your product
Yep.
and you're selling, you want to go ahead and turn
Mhm.
everything off on your Amazon or
Yep.
everything off of your Shopify and go back to the drawing board and really
Mhm.
put pen to paper and figure
Yep.
out what your costs are and make
Yep.
sure you've got really good margin. You are
Yep.
likely going to be out of business in the near term future with no
Yep.
funds to actually get back in business.
Yep. I'm all for the future because I learned my lesson. I'm like, girl, you could have been Bill Gates. And you just doing the most, just spending, just not really breaking down my cost of goods. I had no idea even that was a thing. And so a lot of times our founders or creators, we don't come from business backgrounds at all. I
Yeah.
came from a 9 to 5, like a career. So I know nothing about business. We still learning as we go. And then it's funny that you mentioned the pen and paper. I still do that to this day. I have a little weekly calendar that I do every Wednesday. I go back and track and I make sure everything is correct until I get a co-founder or somebody to help me.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the staff light booth concept that you have been working on. And just really broadly, without getting into the specific details around the technology, what is the insight that first drove you to think about bringing that concept to the market? And then, big picture, what is your vision of what your target customers' oral care routine will look like now with that as an option?
Mm-hmm. So that concept came about because I'm like, okay, I am not gonna be able to go back into seeing my people for a long time. And so I was thinking about ways that I can see them. And so they would make jokes about, you can just send us K&K in a box, like box yourself up and just send us. And so I started thinking about the era that we're in. People want convenience. They want good convenience stuff. And a lot of us are busy traveling or whatever the case may be. They always can't come to me. So
Yep.
that's where the box concept came in. And so you whiten yourself, you push a button and it does everything for you. So you relax. But the piece that I'm still trying to figure out is how I want them to still get Kanicka. I want them to still get that experience. And so that's the piece that I'm trying to figure out, because that's what K&K was built on, was the serving and the experience piece of it. But that's how that came about. And so we're doing rebranding, just trying to
To
figure out
look over, figure out how to do it. Now, tell me this. A lot of people listening might say, well, girl, why don't you just open up a storefront? Tell us a little bit about why you feel more confident, especially after your experience with the Beauty Collective, in potentially doing something like this versus immediately jumping into a long-term lease with a storefront.
Because I always think the costs, for one. You got to count the costs for that. So I'm killing the overhead if I go this other route. I don't have to hire anybody. And again, the pop-ups is where it started. And so a lot of times you got to go back to the basics anyway. And that's the era that everybody's in. Everybody popping up everywhere. So it'll make more sense for us to keep up with everybody and be popping up as we used to anyway, because that's what K&K is. I remember somebody was like, y'all just everywhere. You just always popping up everywhere. I'm like, yep, if it's a flyer, you go see K&K. Like, if it makes sense, we gonna be there. Pop up, I'm pop up for sure, because retail shops, and then again, after going through the whole concept, I learned a lot with the Beauty Collective. You got to be ready for that.
Yeah, I love that, because you are watching your growth and trying to strategically plan it out so you don't go too fast or too far.
Right.
And we're talking to a lot of founders that are experiencing similar challenges as they plan out their growth, because they're no longer in that ideation stage. They're really a product right now.
Yeah.
But the systems haven't quite caught up, right? You're outselling product, but now you need more structure, you need more systems, you need more money to really get the business going. What has been the hardest part for K&K Smiles in terms of building the brand outside of having more resources in the form of money or people? What do you feel like has been the hardest challenge in terms of building the brand?
Building the brand is actually the hardest part would be the toothpaste, creating the toothpaste, because I'm not a scientist. You can ask my husband. I do not cook. I don't even go in the kitchen. I barely even know what they look like. So unless he's making toothpaste. And so that would be the hardest part of getting it to perfection.
It's funny, because I think a lot of listeners would say, well, Kanicka, she's in the dental category. Surely she knows how to mix up a batch of toothpaste. So to talk a little bit about that fact that you were not on the formulation side of oral care, you were a hygienist. So how did you even know what to start with in terms of ingredients?
Just really, to be honest, research and trial and error is what it was. So I was looking at, there was a concept called coconut oil pulling. I'm like, okay, so just coconut oil. So we started with the coconut oil, and I was like, wait, they just take the coconut oil in, and I was like, that is nasty. And so I was like, what can we do to make it taste good? And so it just went from there, and then bring it up to this day. And then I added the whitening, which is baking soda. So I'm like, okay, that's common. And so we had the basics, but I was like, what can I do to make this unique and different? Like, and I want to keep it community based. I want to keep this story. This wasn't white labeled. This was made by us in the kitchen. And so that has been the hardest part for us, is keeping it. And then when my fiance came along, he is a cook himself. But shout out to him, okay? Because honestly, at the time when we met, I was in love with the toothpaste, because we were having the issue to where we would go out to these pop-up shops and it was melting. And I'm like, why is the toothpaste melting? Okay, I understand it's 80 degrees outside, but why is it just melting? I can't even package it from the house to the pop-up shop. And so we had to
Yeah.
go back to the pen and paper and research and see what keeps it consistent at this certain
Yeah.
temperature. We changed the bottles, and so that was an issue. The bottle changes, and then when we changed the bottles, the formula was right, but it would get stuck. And so I was just done. I'm like, I'm not doing this toothpaste thing no more. It's a wrap. We just gonna do the whitening services because I was done. But he came along, we started doing it, and now he actually does the toothpaste. So I get to watch him and Kalani.
That's an interesting point that I think some founders also experience is not just the involvement of maybe their kids, but a significant other or their spouse in the either product creation, the delivery of the services, or sometimes the surrounding functions, marketing, product delivery, etc. Talk about some rules of the road for working with a spouse and how you and your husband maintain that balance. I know you have to be serious sometimes. How do you guys balance?
We balance it. It's gotten better. But when we first started, I tell you what, I was like, listen, this is me and my baby's business. And I don't care what you can make. You're not going to tell me what to do. So we will be in the kitchen. And I would have it written down. And I'm like, you didn't add that the last time, or it'll come out different. And he was like, Kanicka, don't start with me. And I'm like, look, that's not what it said. This is what it's supposed to be. And you're not doing it. But now I'll tell him, he go in there, he do his thing. I'm not even allowed to say anything. You gonna be quiet. Like, you're not gonna be telling me what to do when I'm the one that helps you. And to be honest, Kalani just does her thing. She comes in, she actually functions like a real CEO, does nothing. I always tell people that girl has been a CEO since she's born. She oversees. That's it. She'll go and see, or Mama, did we make a sale? Or Mama, do we need this? And so bring it up to today. We looking at contract manufacturers, and he is so excited. He is so excited. He like, I would even pay email for you to get this all away from me. So yeah.
I love it because that is definitely a transition that many brands are going to experience as they grow. And as we wrap things up here, I do want you to reflect on your journey so far and the decisions you've had to make in terms of scaling the brand. What would you advise people who are sitting at home listening to this or watching and they know they have some product that they've been working on or trying to get to that next step? What would you say of these areas like packaging, pricing, production, figuring out where to sell it? Which of those things would you say they first need to tighten up before they do anything else?
My advice would be, first, make sure that this is something that we need. Make sure that this is something that people would actually be interested in. Confirm there's a need. You do that by surveys or just showing up places. So before they start putting your energy and your time, make sure there's a need. And if a lot of times if somebody else is doing it, there is a need. So
I tell founders all the time, the worst thing you can do is try to create a product or service and then go find an audience to sell it.
Yep.
When find the audience and find out what the audience wants. It's just
and then create it. And I wish I would have took my own advice starting out, because I tell you what, it would have saved me a lot of headaches. But yes, I would tell them that. And then make sure your packaging is presentable. Cora was just making fun of me. She's like, Kanicka is always changing packaging. Yes, I'm gonna stay on packaging until I get it right, because it needs to be done. Because I'm one of those girls that I'm gonna buy it if it's cute. I probably won't ever use it, but if it's cute and it's packaged and it look good and it works, oh, you getting my money. And that's how a lot of people think.
Hey, that's why we call this the brand blueprint. Call it the brand blueprint because we like to give practical advice, and that is a very good bit of practical advice that you just gave. So founders, make sure if you need to rewind this, do that, because Kanicka just dropped two really good gems there. Look, as always, I am excited when I have a founder come on that I specifically work with on a regular basis and mentor. And so before we go, I want you first let the audience know where they can find your brand and follow you on your specific socials.
So www.myKKSmiles.com is where everything lives. And then Instagram is Smiles with KK. And then it's Smiles with KK too.
All right, you heard that information. Again, we will share that information on the brandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about business, but check out our website there. You can find more information about Kanicka. Follow her brand, K&K Smiles. Kanicka, thanks again for being transparent, honestly, for sharing so much information. You are one of the founders that keeps me inspired, because You have such a never-ending well of enthusiasm for your brand and for learning.
Thank you.
I think our audience is really going to benefit from the conversation we had today and all of the great gems that you
Yay.
dropped on this conversation.
Thank you for having
All
me.
right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. And so, audience, make sure you watch, like, and follow our content. Make sure you recommend and share this particular episode with friends, family, especially founders of color in the female space specifically, who are going to undoubtedly be inspired by Kanicka's advice here today. And you can find her information again in the show notes and in the Instagram bio. Thanks again for watching this great and exciting episode of the Brand Blueprint. We look forward to having you back on our next episode, and have a great one.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.